Good afternoon. Let me let everybody in before we move forward.
Afternoon.
Afternoon. Okay. Can you just let everybody in and then we'll get everything off the ground.
Professor, really quick, I was trying to upload my work for this week, but it said that the file was too big, and I tried to put it as a JPEG and it came out really like blurry, like the quality just wasn't good.
Huh. You know, I'm a little surprised why the JPEG would have a reduced quality. You could try a PNG
Okay.
instead, and that might be a little bit more agreeable, and then just drop that in.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Professor, I didn't see a Google Drive folder to put our work. Is there one?
The
The
same
same
Google
one.
Drive folder as always, yes.
Okay,
The
thank you.
main folder. You're welcome. All right, looks like everybody's here. I'm going to screen share, get right to the handout, just because it's grounding and it'll help clarify exactly where we're at. All right, let's see. Are you all seeing my screen? All right, great. A couple of quick things before we get started. Let me get one thing off the ground. I have gotten an unusual amount of email rather suddenly from all of my classes, including this one. So I do want to apologize for anybody who's not heard from me, may have been waiting for days to hear back from me, and I really apologize for that. Tomorrow is a designated catch up on email day. So anyone who's got any kind of specific questions for me, and some of your questions have been rather detailed, I intend to look everything over in as much detail as possible and get back to people yet tomorrow, right? So again, I apologize for that. The end of the semester gets increasingly fierce for all of us. I don't have much to say about any of this, but we will have some assets for later today. If you want to download them while I'm talking, you're welcome to do that. Class 10 assets, you can get them from here or from our homepage. I'd mentioned the last few weeks about tutoring. I'm not going to say much. Here's the link where someone would go to find tutoring. If you need more help in Illustrator than I can give you, because frankly, I don't have time to do individual tutoring, it's on you to take advantage of this. I know there's one or two people in the class who really would benefit from that kind of time, and you should take this link very seriously. 1 second. Looks like someone got locked out. Let me let them in. All right. Okay. YouTube playlist should be up to date. Now, I want to say very quickly, I don't want to talk about revisions for the last project at this stage, but if anyone is giving me revisions, in that one case, you go to the same drive that we always use. That's this link. But once you're inside, open the revisions folder before you drop any work in it. So if you have revisions for me, please use the revisions folder. I'm not going to be checking other folders. If you've already put it in the wrong folder, please resubmit your work. At least one person's told me they gave me a revision, which I could not find, and that's what the revisions folder is for. All right, I'd like to say something about what's due right now. We're going to be doing some breakout room stuff in a couple of minutes, but before we do that, I do want a copy of your current draft in the main Google Drive folder. And the only reason I didn't repeat the folders is because they're right here just above. So if you've not yet put your brand new draft in the folder, you could do that right now. Here's your link. This is section 101 link. You can click this and drop your work in there. I do want to say something about this. We had a couple of weird issues dropping work off. Like a couple of times people's work was it sideways or upside down? I don't even remember. That was like a brand new event that had nothing to do with anyone's error, probably Google's error. But more recently, we're having, massive file sizes, which again is not your error. Annette mentioned it, but it's not her, it's not yours if you're having these huge file size issues. In fact, one of the more important subjects today is a little bit more about how to manage very large files. Let me be a little bit clear about that. When a file is large because of placed photographs, right, there's a number of strategies to work with it. So I want to be very clear about something. Adobe Illustrator makes very small file sizes compared to, say, Photoshop or compared to anything. So you never really have file size issues, at least rarely, unless we're bringing in lots of photos in a project just like this one, right? That's why I say it's no one's fault. So if you bring in 4 photos, it's a much larger size. It has the kind of weight that Photoshop carries, not native to Illustrator. So I want to go over today ways to manage that and things that we can do just a little bit later. For right now, though, I would settle for JPEGs, PNGs, you know, any way you could show me what you have, right? So I want to be clear about something. I don't typically grade drafts. You know, they're there so that I could look at them and get to know them, or that we could discuss them as a group. But I do need to say something very clear, and I hope everyone's listening, right? If you should ever have an issue, you know, for example, very low grades, right? Now, this class happens to have very high grades, but a couple of people have had difficult semesters. You know, there's so many reasons a person might have a difficult semester. So what I'll do in that case is I'll look in your draft folders to see how you've been doing in general. So if I don't get the drafts and then push comes to shove, you deleted your final, let's say, for example, you know, it just disappeared off of the planet. At least I have the drafts. So I do want people to take the drafts very seriously. Let me back up for 1 second though, you know, the number one reason for the drafts is to stay on schedule. Can't do good final work unless you're doing good process steps each week. So the drafts are mostly about that, but they also serve as kind of emergency backups to let the teacher know how you're doing, you know, and on occasion, drafts have come to bail someone out in great need. So please be sure you're taking the drafts very seriously, and at the same time realize it's your final work that gets graded, right? So if something goes wrong on a draft, that's not the biggest disaster, not at all. Something goes wrong on the final project, that's a much larger thing. Right? All right. So this is what your draft should be called. Now I want to tell you something. There were a number of things in there today that just said draft. So I didn't know if it was draft 1 or draft 2, in which case I moved it out of today's folder. So I want to show you something. All of these here say project 3, draft 2. I know it's very tiny, right? This is all the way this is supposed to be named. Big thumbs up to you, very professional art students. Really respect that. Up here is this older folder that no one has any reason to ever touch again, but possibly me. Project 3, draft 1 only. So I do want to say something though. If you put work in, say a little early, but it didn't say draft 2 on it, I assumed it was draft 1 and I moved it into that folder. So you might want to take a look, make sure your name is there if you're not sure what you named it. If you named it the way that I asked on the last handout, you're good. But if you were winging the name a little bit or just made a small error, it might have gotten moved in that folder. So I'm not blaming you, but you might want to rename it and put it in today's folder. Folders, you guys have got to be tired. I don't know about you, but my brain is close to shot and we have another month to go. So I'm struggling to stay alert. Every day I'm like, which class is this? Which group is this? Oh, I got 25 emails from people who didn't tell me what class they're in. Hi, my name's Jill. Can we talk? I'm like, what? Who's Jill? I have over 100-something students. So if you're going to send me an email, please help. Let me know what day of the week it is or your section number, some way that I could figure out quickly and get to your case in particular. All right. So listen, I want to tell you what I want to do right now. All right, let's get a look at the handout. It looks like all that work's already been put in the Google Drive. It's afterwards that I move them into folders. I'm sorry to be ultra thorough today. It's probably me because I'm kind of dim-witted this afternoon. The only folder I could think of that you'd ever have to open, ever, except for the main one that we've been using all semester, is if you're doing a revision. You know, that's the only folder you'd ever open if you're doing an update on a prior project. Then you'd open revision and drop it in there. Other than that, you just always drop it in the same Google Drive that we've been using. Hey, does anybody have any questions for me that relates to all of this?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So in the handout in the last week one, it's like bring the draft to work. so I didn't put the file into the Google Drive.
So
So
I'm
after
asking
this
you,
class, do I should put?
can you do that now? Just
Okay,
drop it in
yeah.
now. That would be great.
I forgot also the draft one too. So is that okay?
Oh,
for
no,
you guys?
ignore that. We're up to draft 2 now.
Okay.
Yeah. And Hibby, since I'm collecting it now, you could just drop it right in there. I'm going to assume if you're putting it in now that it is draft 2.
Okay.
So
Right.
yes, please
I
give me a
would
copy.
do.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question for me? All right, folks. So listen, this is what we're about to do, right? I have a lot of new material today, but I want to, you know, try to juggle things. I want to say something about the support groups. Really, there's 2 reasons I do it. One is, gee, I think it stinks that you guys can't meet each other in the physical world and have much of an interaction between artists like we would in a normal year. Let's hope the best for 2021. It's a strange year. So at least in the groups, you get to talk to each other in some way, have some kind of feedback from other artists. But to be honest with you, the other reason is just practical. There's just not enough time for me to talk to everybody about every draft, because that would be 8 classes out of 15, right? And you'd only be learning new material 7 out of 15 classes. That's roughly how the math would work. So it just can't be done. So this is what's about to happen. The stuff you put in the Google Drive, I'm going to be taking a look at on my own. And I do that partially to know how everybody's doing and to know how you're doing as an individual. If anyone's in trouble, and I can see that in the draft, I'm probably going to reach out to them individually and give them a heads up about what went wrong. So I'm not ignoring your drafts. I am getting a look at them. We don't have the time to go over them as a group. So you're about to screen share, and this is what I'd like for you to do. So here I am, I'm on 2B here. Be prepared to screen share. Screen sharing, you don't care about Google Drive. You have your own draft right in front of you. So I'm going to ask you to open up your own draft on your computer so you're ready to show it in breakout rooms. So again, please open your newest draft now while I'm talking to you. Now, we did this before, right? But only once, I believe, right? So you'll notice the green share screen button at the bottom of Zoom, right? New share or share screen, right? You're going to click it when your turn comes. Once you click it, you have to select either desktop or screen. You could open Illustrator. It'll give you the option, say, oh, I only want to share Illustrator. But then if you want to show a JPEG or something like that, you won't be able to. So I really suggest that you choose desktop or screen when your turn comes to share. So you click the green button, then you'll choose desktop or screen. When your turn is over, you click end share so the next person can move ahead. Folks, by the way, this has been very successful, the breakout room thing, except when somebody is particularly less able on the computer and just less experience usually. And then you guys have been very kind. You help that person figure out how to Zoom share, and 15 minutes sometimes goes by. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Here's the deal. The groups are going to be about 5 people. You'll have about 4 minutes a person, right? So I'm going to ask you, somebody brave, when you show up in your group, say 5 people, someone brave said, I wouldn't mind going first, and you'll share first. The other 4 people in your group will ask questions or make comments. So I want to be clear, when you show your work, it's not so you could talk, unless it's necessary. You have something you really want to say, but it's more so that you could ask, or you could hear what your colleagues want to say about your work to help you move forward. So in a couple of minutes, I'm going to make breakout rooms, right? Someone will be first in your group to volunteer, show their work. Now about the questions, we're still talking about these views, this project that's just about, it's going to be done next time I see you, right? So really, it's not a high concept project, is it? We're not really talking about ideas like we were in the last project. So these are just views. What do you like best when you're looking at your colleagues' work? And why do you like it? Do you like it because the texture is so amazing? Do you like it because the detail is knocking you out? Or do you just like the color? What is it? Let them know. Please let your colleague know. If you see that, oh, one of the views isn't as good as the others, what could be improved? What's the issue with it? Look, your goal is to help each other, right? And I know you're very generous with that. So this is the moment. All right, folks, listen, before I jump in, does anyone have a last minute question for me? So again, have your work open so you're ready. Be succinct, about 4 minutes a person. You'll get an alert from me about a minute or two before the breakout room session is over, right? All right, here we go then. Give me a second. Okay. All right, YouTube, I'm going to pause this recording for a little bit. All right, I think we're good. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm choosing desktop so I could show you whatever I want. I want to go over a couple of things. I want to do a little bit with patterns and a little bit, just this today is like a lot of different subjects, one new one coming a little bit later. So right now, if everybody would open Illustrator with me, I have some people's work out there. Nice looking stuff too. All right. The size of the document from now doesn't really matter. So I'm going to open a letter size document. I'm going to ask you to join me. I want to say a few things about patterns, which we got a taste of recently. I'm putting everything away just so that we could start from scratch. First thing I want is your Swatches palette out. Window menu, Swatches, if you don't already have it out. I have mine kind of enlarged. I'm just going to back off that a little bit. Okay. Now, I want to point out that there's only 2 patterns that come with the program in the main swatches. So I'm going to ask you to make a large rectangle. And with the default swatches out, I'd like you to find this. So there's a lot of flat colors, and then there's just a couple of gradients, and then suddenly there's a pattern. And one more pattern. So there's just 2 patterns to let you know that it exists. One thing that's kind of interesting, regardless of which of the 2 patterns, if you got the black arrow and made this box larger, right? I want to ask you a question. When you make your box larger or smaller, does the pattern change size or does the pattern stay the same size? Because you notice mine just got smaller when I made the box smaller and larger when I made it larger. Is it the same for you? Somebody volunteer?
My pattern stayed the same.
Did it? So I think that's the default. And I had to ask you because my computer doesn't have the defaults anymore. I've customized things. So I want to show you what I've got in mind, and you're going to join me on this issue. So let me catch up with you. I'm making a fresh box. I'm going to put that same pattern in there. There we go. And I'd like for everybody to check something out with me. Could you all go to the black arrow? And this time I want you right on the toolbar to double click the black arrow. So if you double click the black arrow, options show up, right? And you'll see here this transform objects and transform patterns. You know, give me a moment. I just want to close my door. So I'm thinking yours are probably off, right? So I'm going to actually turn transform patterns off, right? Just wait for me a second. You can leave this out, right? Just I'm closing mine, but I want you to leave these options out. So now the pattern stays the same size, even if I open or close the box. So what I'd like to do now is join you, and I'd like you to check transform patterns. Turn that on, click OK. And now when you change the size of it, the pattern will change with it. So again, to get to those options, I double clicked the black arrow. I went right to the toolbar and double clicked right on it. And all I did was turn this on. You know, guys, I got to tell you something, though. I did years of illustration before I used patterns at all. So I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this subject, just a little bit of time, right? I want to show you something else. Did we get a look at pattern libraries together? Did you see the dots and lines and all of that? No? Oh, I got to show you this. All right, so let's take a quick look at this. What I'd like to introduce you to is on your Swatches palette in the lower left corner is a button that looks like a bunch of books. A few palettes have this same button. Another one we're going to look at very soon, the Brushes palette. But if you click on this in the lower left corner, it's telling you all the kinds of swatch libraries there are. And there are like a couple of hundred, right? So sometime when you're bored, come here and check them all out. But today I want you to come down to where it says patterns. All right, make sure you don't miss this. So you got your swatches out. You go to the lower left where all the hidden libraries live, all the swatch libraries. You can go down to patterns. Could you go to the one called Basic Graphics? My personal favorite. Over to where it says Basic Graphics dots. Patterns, graphics, basic graphics, dots. Now it opens up almost like a separate swatches palette. And what I'd like you to do is fill your big rectangle with any of these just to see what it feels like. So we're talking about fills. This could be someone's shirt. This could be the size of a wall. This could even be letters filled with dots. And there's a history of artists using dots. So this is something we've been doing for a very long time. It came out of print and ink, printing, the printing process, but it's moved on to a number of fine artists come to mind. All right, I want to show you something else though. So every time you chose one of these patterns from the library, it added it to the swatch palette. So if you look at your swatches palette, it's got all these new features on it now that just got added to it. So what I'd like for you to do is this: keep your swatches out, the usual one, keep your library out, and I want to point out something at the bottom of the library. So at the bottom of the library are these two arrows. Now, honestly, I wish the swatches palette had this built in, but you have to open any of the libraries for these to show up. Could you click the right side arrow? So it's right at the bottom of the library, and it takes you to the next library. So that's the same as going to the little library button and saying patterns, basic graphics, and going to the next one, which is lines. Just faster. You just click the next arrow. See what these look like. I don't use these as much, but they're pretty cool. Just get a taste of it. Click the next arrow. This is very commonly used with architects, and one could argue it may help us with textures in some cases. This is yet another textural option. If you got lost, this is where I'm at. We originally opened swatches, we clicked the library, and everything we're getting now is from the pattern section of the library button. We're still in basic graphics, but we went to basic graphic textures. I want to show you guys something right here though. And if you want to join me, you can. If you overlap your box with another box, I'd like you to fill it with a flat color. I'm going to take this big yellow box and send it to the back because I want to show you something that I think makes patterns a little more interesting. I'm going to take this box and send it to the back, right? I just used Command left bracket. And that means all the white on these patterns are transparent. So that means I can put anything I want behind them. So if this was somebody's shirt, they could have any number of kinds of background underneath that pattern. That's kind of interesting. All right, I don't want to say too much about it, but I am going to just flip ahead to the next group, and I just want to say a little bit about these. I'm going to get rid of that color box because it's a little.
I just have a quick question about the patterns we were just looking at.
Yes.
So they were all black and transparent, but can we change the black to a different color?
You know, you can. It might take a little bit of work. I want to give it a shot, but so I can give you an honest answer, right? So I'm going to be the guinea pig, and we'll find out if this works. I'm going back to that library, and I'm going to take one of these pattern tiles hang on a second there. I'm going to drag it out. Now, there's two different ways to edit a pattern tile. That's what all these little swatches are really called, because they repeat. They're called tiles, like the tiles on a kitchen floor. So I dragged one out. I am now going to zoom on it with Command+. And all of these things can be selected. The question is how, right? Because I want to avoid one thing. There's a box in there that tells the tile where the edges are, right? So I'm a little worried about selecting that. So what I'm going to try to do first is I'm going to select them all. These look like strokes. So I'm going to bring the stroke box to the front and give it a new color. And it looks like that worked. The box itself got a color. Do you see it? There's a rectangle there. I'd rather that not happen. So if that's going to happen, I'm going to try to click the box alone and give it a stroke of none. Now, I got to back up though. It's behaving like a group. So every time I click any of it with the black arrow, I'm getting the whole thing. So if I really just want part of it, I'm going to get the white arrow instead. I'm going to give this a stroke of none. So my stroke box is in front, stroke of none. All right. So I pulled a pattern out of the swatches, dropped it on the stage, right? Worked with it. And look what I'm going to do now. I'm going to get the black arrow, click on it. Because it's a group, I get it with one click with the black arrow. And I'm going to drag it back on. Now, I have to drag it to the Swatches palette for this to work. Can't drag it to a library. Those are kind of frozen. But I can drag this one on. So now I've got two different patterns. I want to show you something. Here's the big box. Here it is with the pattern I just made. In a second there. So I thought. There we go. So I want to answer Juliana's question a little bit more specifically, right? Here's the rules. If you take a tile out, here's the dots, for example, drag it out, zoom in on it, you could figure out how to make changes. They may take a lot of white arrow. To use it, remember, this is just a tile. Here, look at my page. It's just this little thing, right? So it's really just the artwork I'm going to base a new tile on. I'm going to get the black arrow, click the whole thing and drag it back in onto the Swatches palette. So I got two palettes out. Swatches, I could drag stuff to. The libraries, I could borrow stuff from. Let's see what this looks like. So there you go. Now, guys, I didn't really intend to spend this long on it. It just was a good question. I want to mention one more thing to you all. Folks, be very clear whether you need this or not. You know, your career may change. And if you're, say, right now, you want to do animation, you might use Illustrator a lot, but I'm not sure you're going to use patterns a lot. So you want to figure out how much time is it worth. On the other hand, if you're going to work for fashion, you're going to be the illustrator for a fashion house, you might want to learn more about this. So I want to mention a feature that I'm new to. So I'm not going to be the go-to expert on this one, right? Because I don't need a lot of patterns. This is called pattern editing mode. We're just going to get a peek at it. Here's the way it works. I find a pattern that I want to edit, and I double click it. Now, will it let me do that in the library? No. All right, it'll let me do it in the Swatches palette, though. So I could choose one that's in the Swatches palette and double click it. And if you look on my screen, the top left has got a bunch of gray buttons. Now I want to back out because I want to show you one more time. I went to my Swatches palette and I chose one of the patterns that had gotten moved into my swatches. Remember, every one you try shows up in your Swatches palette. But I double clicked one of them. And this is what happened. It's showing me what one tile looks like and how it repeats. This may be an easier way to edit it. Because every time I click something, it's showing me how it would affect the entire pattern. So you might find this a lot easier. I'm new to this approach myself. I do a lot of Illustrator, but not a lot of patterns, right? And then when I'm done with that, I look in the top left and it says save a copy or just done. If I just click done, I've now got the pattern available in my swatches. Guys, this went a lot further than I wanted to go. If you're feeling a little confused, I'm going to do one more demo and you could join me on it. Clear your screen, just delete everything. Just do Command A and press delete, right? Then draw yourself a very large box. And I'd like you to open a swatch library, pattern library. If your libraries are not out, go to the bottom of the swatches, click the library button. And I'm going to go to patterns again because that's the subject, patterns. And I'm going to use basic graphics dots. Choose one you'd like to work with and say, I like it, but I'd like to edit it. The thing is, once you chose it, that same swatch just got added to the swatch palette itself. And you'll see the new one has a little frame around it. If you want to edit it, double click the copy that just showed up on the swatches palette. You don't need the library anymore. You'll double click the one on the swatches palette. Zoom in. Notice there's a box that's showing you the edge of the tile. I don't think it's going to act like a group here, so you could use the black arrow and you can make any change you want and see what happens. So it's going to show you what's going to happen to the pattern. When you're ready with your changes, you could delete stuff, you could move stuff around, you could try different kinds of color. You probably can't put a pattern in a pattern. Oh, it lets me do that now. That's crazy. That's new. When you're done, look at the top of the screen. You'll see this gray area in the upper left. Just click done. It won't let me do it. Not surprised. All right. I just got to go back to that one and give it a flat color. It'll let you use gradients though. So I got to click done now. There's my big box from earlier with the brand new pattern. Juliana, you got more than you bargained for there. Does anybody have any last minute pattern questions for me? It's interesting. You know, I experiment with them. I'll use them in stranger art really, but for day-to-day stuff, they look a little canned most of the time. All right, I want to move on though. All right, let me get a look at the handout. Hang on a second there. There we go. I want to talk to you about this palette called the Appearance Palette, but I want to use the Transparency Palette first, right? So let's come back to Illustrator. Let's delete this big box. I'd like it if we had a real drawing to work with. So if you're feeling energetic, draw me a quick profile. If you're feeling lazy, draw me a kidney bean. So this is what I mean by that. I want to get the pencil tool for now. And it has a cool shortcut. You could press the letter N to get to it. I often check my options before I use a tool. So I'm going to double click the pencil tool. I just double clicked it. I like smoothing to be here. And I'm going to leave everything else set to the defaults. So if you have it in you to draw a profile for me, draw something simple. Don't get carried away. Remember, you could stop anytime you want and continue it. Pencil tool lets you do that. Not all the tools do. And there's two things I need. I need it to be closed. So I keep saying that since the first day of the class. There are times when you won't close an object, but most of the time you will. Just about all the features are going to be more agreeable. Also remember, the pencil tool does let you adjust shapes. If you hate your drawing, you can come back to that edge and alter it. So I need a closed object. All right. Now, I'd like you to fill it, if you would, with a flat color. Now, if that's strenuous, I could work with almost any closed shape, right? And when I was kidding around about the kidney bean, I kind of meant it actually. I'm just going to move this over to make a point. Kidney beans are shaped a little like that. And I've used it for a lot of demonstrations because it's a specific shape. And if light and shadow was going to hit it, we'd be kind of clear about, what shape the light would have or what shape the shadow would have. So this would be fine. I'm going to work with this guy though, since I have him. All right. I would like for you to put another box partially over the drawing you just did. And I'd like you to fill that box that's in front of your drawing with a completely different color. All right, I want to talk to you about transparency. We've touched this before. I want to revisit it. There's two different ways to take an object and make it transparent, and those two ways combine. One is simply lowering its opacity, and the other one is applying the far more complex thing called blending modes. All right, I want to compare them one more time and how to work with them. Could everyone open from the window menu, transparency? Transparency, window menu, transparency. So you want to make sure that that new shape you put on top is selected. You also want to make sure that the fill box is in front. So I'm looking at the bottom of the toolbar, fill box. And then I want you to take your opacity and lower it down. That's a very simple thing, right? And could really help you quiet down a background, for example. Put a big box in front of the whole forest. The person in the front doesn't have it, so you're seeing them in full color, but everything behind it is sort of behind a veil. That's pretty cool. All right, what I'd like for you to do though is quickly try out one of your patterns. Yeah, why not? A transparent pattern. Or even a gradient. All right, what I would like for you to do is bring the opacity back up to 100. Now, I would like for you to start out with a flat color. So I'm going back to this blue that I was using. So I got blue again. I got the opacity set at 100. All right. Illustrator makes that kind of transparency very easy, right? It's much easier than Photoshop, because in Photoshop, you can make a whole layer transparent, but you can't make one object transparent. So you have total control in Illustrator of transparency. But it's kind of milky looking, and it's not always what I really want. So then comes blending modes. So you got your object, it's set to 100% opacity. I'd like you to come over to the left of your transparency palette. And you'll see it says normal. The normal blending mode is no blending mode. But beneath it is a little section of 3. There's a little divider there. I'd like you to try and multiply. So what's going on? It's taking the color on top and applying a distinctive kind of math that will always result in something darker. The multiply blending mode is often used for shadows and other things. So it takes the object with the blending mode, multiply, and anything underneath it is going to be affected, right? The veil now has a special quality that affects everything underneath it. While you're there, why not see how other colors would look with the same blending mode? We're using multiply. While you're at it, why not see what gradients do? Or even patterns. Now I got to warn you, not every choice is going to be satisfying because the math is complex. The blending modes will always have a favorite kind of combination that triggers them. And if your blending mode isn't giving you what you want, you try a different one. So multiply is my favorite one from the top set. All 3 of these are devoted to darkening. Sometimes you can't tell them apart. Sometimes you can. I want to check out the next set though. There's also 3. And all 3 of these are different ways to lighten an object. So I want to try screen, which is the most famous of the 3. Now this is just crazy, right? It's like the colors I'm getting have nothing to do with the orange face or the blue box. Lighten, not much more interesting. Color dodge, not that much more interesting. Let's check out the next section then. Overlay, soft light, hard light. Just try them out on your own. So I have to tell you something though. These are the hardest thing to teach. It kind of helps if I've got something very complicated going on. You know, bear with me for a second. I want to try something. So here I've got this random page, right? And it's got some leaves on it. This is from an exercise we're going to be doing pretty soon. I just want to show you something. I might even have text. Here's a big box that's overlapping most of it, and I'm filling it with just yellow. Here's my transparency palette. Here's what it looks like with multiply. It's an interesting look, isn't it? It's definitely giving it a kind of tint. Here it is with red. And you could see the way it's affecting those objects as I'm letting some of it stick out. Purple. I want to show you what this purple would look like if I left all these darkening modes and went down to the 3 that all lighten an object. Here's screen. You know, I want to tell you though, if you're interested in this at all, you're just going to have to play. Any list I could give you about what these mean would be misleading. The math is so complicated, it's almost more, you know, valuable to play with them and see which ones interest you and which ones don't. All right. Now I'm going to ask you to do with me is set up anything with a blending mode. So in other words, if you want, you could take that top box and put a pattern in it. So here I've got this pattern set to soft light. Here it is set to multiply. Okay, I want to take a step back. If you're the type who likes things clean and neat and sharp-edged, you know, you like your understandings to be black and white, you could leave blending modes alone for a while. It's a crazy place. And if you start stacking objects and they all have blending modes, you're going to probably lose it. It might be beautiful, but it'd be very hard to grasp, right? So I want to say a few things about it and management and how do you manage transparency and blending modes. So I was focusing on this palette, right? Because this is home base for both these subjects. Here's opacity and here's blending modes. And once I get the hang of them, I could even combine them if I want. I want to show you a couple of interesting things about it though. I'm moving this over because I want to make a point. If you look at the properties palette, it has this section here called opacity. I want to show you what it looks like if I click this word on the properties palette. This one's almost always open on the right, but look what happens if I click this. This looks exactly like the transparency palette almost. Sure enough, it's got this and it's got the blending modes. So some people don't even use this palette. What they do instead is they come right here and click opacity. It's got the same features, 100%, normal. So I want to make a small point. Doesn't matter which one you use that I could see right now. If you think this makes sense to you, the properties palette, just remember you get to it from here. I sure wish they called it transparency. Then you'd know it was the same palette, but it is. If you don't like that, you'd rather just get to know the palette than just stick with this. Window menu, transparency. This is the traditional way. Does anybody have any questions for me about transparency or blending modes? I want to make this a little more complicated unfortunately, right? So this is what I'm going to ask you to do with me. Leave it all out. Leave whatever you just created here with the drawing underneath it. And wait for me a second. I want to show you something. Hang on a minute. I'm debating about how I want to show you this. All right, let's get this started. I would like for you to open up one more palette with me. Could everyone join me by going to the window menu? It's in alphabetical order. We want this one called Appearance. Listen, there's about 20-something people, let's say 23 people in this class. I want all 23 of you to hear me as an individual right now, each of you, right? The stuff I'm showing you right now is not for everybody. It's for when you want it. So if any of these couple things just, you're like, wait a second, Ira, I liked Illustrator when it was simpler. By all means, stick with that then, right? If on the other hand, you're fascinated by these things, then join with me and get a taste. The Appearance palette is there kind of to manage complexity. So if you were a cartoonist, you might not ever use it. So I want to show you how it works. If you click the complex object with the blending mode, so give me a second here. I'm gonna set mine so it would make it more complex. So here's the Appearance palette. Notice what it shows you. It tells you what stroke color you have, what fill color you have, and at the bottom it tells you if you have a blending mode. I want to say a little bit about this whole thing. The stroke palette has a little arrow next to it, but I never use this feature, so I leave it folded. It's easy enough for me to manage strokes the way you already learned. Beneath it, I'd say the same thing about fill. Easy enough to manage the way I already learned. This works on the whole object, and this is the one that interests me. It's not just about the outline. It's not just about the fill. It's the whole object. So if you forgot that you had a blending mode, you just open the Appearance palette, select your object, and look down here. And guess what you can do? You could click the word opacity here also to change it. Try it out. So if your object has any transparency or any blending mode, the Appearance palette's going to tell you. And you could click here as like a shortcut to whatever feature you want. I'm going to be using this more later for textures and effects because they all show up here. The trick is stick with this bottom feature. If you click a simpler object, right, now it's giving me different information. It's telling me the opacity set to the default. Nothing interesting. Complex object gives me more information. Simple object gives me less. So this is what I want to say to you guys about the Appearance palette. You could become a master of this program and never use that palette. But if you like complex chemistry, you know, you're an alchemist when it comes to art, you're going to need this palette. Because often I'll get crazy and I'll mix everything in sight and then I'm lost. What did I do? I got freeform gradients. I've got the smudge effect. I've got multiply blending mode set to 65 transparency. I'm not going to remember that. Even though I'm the teacher, I'm going to get lost. So I'll select the object and I'll look at it in the Appearance palette. Any question for me about the Appearance palette? It's kind of a dumb question about questions, right? You won't have questions till you play with it, I guess, for a while. So again, everybody, again, take this on your own whether you think this is good for you. Again, it's great for complex illustration and it's unnecessary for simple illustration. All right, I want to come back. I want to ask you guys about the freeform gradients and you know, please just be blunt. And I want to ask also the 10 of you with your cameras off, the 11 of you to turn your cameras on. I want to say in my class, the cameras are absolutely required. Every now and then you could turn it off because, you know, your kid brother ran in the room or whatever. I'm not strict, but I do need to know you're here. You know, it's a high profile college. It's not a voluntary basis. So again, if you can't turn on your camera, send me a chat right now so that I'm reminded.
Yeah, my
Right.
camera's broken.
Is it? Okay, great. So I understand that, Micah. Right. And again, any of the rest of you, hey, are you guys here?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here. You're there too. So again, if you have some good reason, send me a chat now. I'm going to read the chats later and take a note of your name. I won't hold it against you if you got a good reason. But if you don't have a good reason, I will hold it against you. I don't think you'd like my class very much if I looked like this. Hi, everybody. I'm a stone wall that looks like a face. So I don't like it either. All right, I'm moving forward. Leave that illustration out. We're going to need it. So how many of you guys that I could see, be honest with me, like freeform gradients? How many of you think you'd use it on your own at this stage?
I like it.
Okay, most of you, right? So I want to say a little bit about it. I'm going to go over it one more time. If you didn't raise your hand, don't feel bad. I have a hunch what threw you. There's two ways to use the freeform gradient. I kind of like them both. But if you're not making friends with it yet, I'm going to recommend you stick with one method, and I want to go over it with you. So if everyone would join me back in Illustrator. Now, if you still have that head, let's use it. If you don't, you can get a simple shape and use that instead. I'm all right with it. I don't even mind if it's, say, a circle if you have to. Right? I'm going to use the head. I'm going to drag them out for a minute. All right, let's talk gradients. You definitely need the gradient palette out, so let's go to the window menu and get it. To use gradients well, regardless of the type, you need at least two things out in most cases. You need the gradient palette, which you get from the window menu, gradient, and you need the gradient tool way on the left on the toolbar. Now, to start a freeform gradient, there's two different ways. One is go right to the gradient palette right away. Well, let me back up. Make sure your fill box is in front. Have your drawing selected and make sure the fill box is in front. All right, to start a freeform gradient, here are the two ways. One, go to the gradient palette, find that third little box, that's the one that means freeform, and just click it. Give the computer a minute. And that'll start a freeform gradient. So you just selected an object, you brought the fill box to the front, and you click this third box on the gradient palette. Pretty cool. But I want to Command Z that, because the way I usually do it is I'll take the gradient tool. So this is the one from the toolbar on the left, right? The tool. And I'll just click inside the object. Now that should prepare a gradient. I mean, maybe I have to double click it. The only difference is you might wind up in the wrong kind of gradient. So if that happens to you, no big deal. You double clicked, oh no, I got a linear gradient. I'll just look here and I'll click the third one over. Okay, but here's the critical part. If you look on the gradient palette, you'll see freeform gradient has either points or lines. I'd like you to make sure that you're in points right now. So I want to share some tricks with you about using points. When you assign an object to use freeform gradient, right, and you use points, the first thing that happens, which is very weird, it gives you a random number of points. And I mean, it really is random. It could be completely different the next day, right? A random number of points. So I want to see how many I've got. I only got 2. And random colors. So this is what I'd like for you to do. I want you to pick one of those points that are already there, move it, then double click it to choose a color. So you start with the ones that are there. If you want, you move it. To choose a color, you double click it. Now, I want to get very busy with this for a minute. Once you double click it, you can use sliders or swatches, sliders or swatches. You could even go back and forth. So it's got these choices right here. If I go to the swatches and say, oh, gee, you know, I want this guy to be kind of yellow, I could switch right over to the sliders. That's the one that looks like an artist palette, and adjust the yellow. So I'll often use both. Is that working for you? I'm still going to respect you, by the way, if it doesn't work. So don't be shy. All right. The only thing I don't like about that, which is really weird, is what if I want to look at his nose right now? The actual palette is hiding the drawing. Isn't that weird? That's just very weird. So if you don't like that, right? Let's say you pick a color and you're like, oh, this is annoying. When you're ready to choose it, hit return or enter. And then you're like, you know, I want to change it, but I want to see his face. So here's the way to do it in that case. Click the one that interests you. Remember, we're using the gradient tool right now to choose these points. They're called points. Pick the same one, but don't double click it. Don't bother with that. Just go get the color palette or the swatches palette yourself. So you could do it the way you're used to, right? You can get the swatches out from here. Give me a minute. Mine is hiding. There we go. And just choose your swatches from there. Or if you prefer to use the sliders, get your color palette, window menu color. It looks exactly the same, but it's not hiding the face. If I double click the point, it hides it. I will often do this, but if it annoys me, I won't. I'll use either of the traditional palettes. You guys see the difference? All right, I want to show you something else. Once you, yes,
Sorry, I have a quick question about picking the colors.
yes,
So when I was using the Freeform Gradient, I was using the Eyedropper tool to pick my color, and
nice.
it kept coming out completely different than whatever I was selecting. Like I'd
Really?
select a beige and it would come out bright blue, and I couldn't figure out why it was happening.
Huh. I want to take a quick peek at that. Give me a second here. So I'm going to double click it, and this is the eyedropper, right? So I'm going to choose the eyedropper, and I'm going to choose this. So that time it worked. So I have to say, the first thing I would do in that situation is maybe I get a look at the appearance palette a little to see if there was a blending mode in there or
Okay.
something like that. Because a blending mode is the only thing I could think of that could make a color appear completely different.
Okay.
You know, yeah, I don't think there's a universal reason. I think the appearance palette might come to the rescue.
Okay, I'll take a look. Thank you.
Now, I do want to mention something though. So guys, if you're working on a head, find a good color for that spot. So you've dragged it to a position and you're picking a color for it. I want to mention what's so cool about this is the next point you make will have the same color. So if I'm working on the whole front of his head, I can do this. I could click here and it has the same color, and here and it has the same color. If at any point you don't want the same color, double click that one and hit return or enter. Keep in mind though, as soon as you change it, the next one's going to use that color. So if the back of this guy's head's supposed to be orangey like that, I'll just move along. The good news is you could change your mind anytime you want. The last color is sort of stored, so all the new points use it. But as soon as you change one, that's the newly stored color. I find this really helpful because very often this is my light side color and this is my shadow side color, you know, for example. Okay. I'm going to throw in a couple other things. They do act kind of strangely when they're very close to each other, right? But you can get some very interesting effects. They start to sharpen the line. Another thing I might want to mention is this is the spread feature. You click on any color to see this ring around it. And that ring includes this black circle, which acts like a handle. If you drag it out, you get more spread. You drag it in, you get less spread. Frankly, I like that a lot, but I wish it was twice as big or 3 times as big. So I'll bet you in some future version of Illustrator, we'll be able to drag that spread feature out. Just remember, to find it, simply click with the gradient tool, leave your mouse there, and you'll see it. Okay, I don't want to spend very long on the other feature, but if you don't like the freeform gradient, stick with points. I want to make a little point about the other method though. Okay, so I'm going to need to clear up these on the back of his head. And if you're working with a head, I'd like you to delete these too. So remember, it's the gradient tool that selects those points. So I'm going to click and press delete. I'm going to click and press delete. I'm going to click and press delete. So what if I wanted to use the other method? Now the other method is freeform lines. You were doing freeform points. Now here's the way freeform lines behaves. I'm going to make a point. I'm going to make a second point, but the magic starts on the third one. So watch this. Up here, I'm going to make a shadow. So I'm starting way on the top and I click once. I'm going to pick a color for it. You just double check, see if something happened. Guys, I'm sorry. I do have to check. Okay. So you clicked, you set up your color, but then you want to look at the gradient palette. Since we've been using points, it probably says points right now. I'd like you to click on lines. Now, if I'm not sure that stuck, so I'm going to click it again and make sure it says lines still, and it does. All right. Now here's where it gets interesting. This one's selected. It's set to lines. I'm going to move down the back of his head. Here's the second point. But I told you the magic is on the third one. So watch this. Once I do the third one, it curved. Here's the fourth one. It continues to curve. When you're done with the line of freeform gradients, to end it, I want you to find the escape key on your keyboard. ESC. On a Mac, it's in the top left corner. And I tap escape. So I have deselected the points. I've got on front separate points, on the back I've got lines. You can go back and change those colors anytime you want. Does anybody have any questions for me about freeform gradient? Was that helpful at all? So I got to say, like, for me, and I'm glad it was helpful to some of you. I do most of what I'm going to do with the floating ones, the ones called points. But I do think the lines feature is pretty darn cool. Okay. I want to check something out quickly, and I just want you to have a look at this. We're going to take a break pretty soon. Remember, this object here that I had nearby had a blending mode on it. Earlier, I was talking about the appearance palette, and I said I often use it to remind myself what is functioning on a given object. So here's my appearance palette, and down here it says, oh, okay, so I don't care about the strokes, don't care about the fills. This is the whole object. It says I'm at 100%, but it's got screen. I'm going to click this guy here, and here it says the opacity is at the default, right? So there's nothing special to know. But I'm just pointing it out. Anytime you have a doubt, you want to learn about one of your objects, just select it and look at the appearance palette. All right, I want to take a look here, just see where we're at for time and a couple other things. A minute. I want to come back and do effects and textures mostly, talk more about texture, but we really do need a break. So I'm going to call a 20-minute break. Couple extra minutes. Let's come back at 5 after 5. So can everybody please keep your work out. If you're worried about losing it, save it somewhere. I am going to want to use the same stuff we have to work with. What would happen if I added texture and I already have a freeform gradient? I already have a pattern. I even have a strange blending mode, right? So how's texture going to work with all of that? All right, let's come back at 5 after 5. Please don't be late. Right? Don't be late at all. And see you then. 5 after 5. Check your watches. Okay. Does it look like I'm recording now?
Yes.
Yes. You know, it's strange. On my computer, the recording feature is often just gone. I can't tell whether I'm recording or not. I always have to ask my class. Peculiar.
Okay, sir.
All right. So I'm drawing your attention to this particular tool called the knife tool. It's usually hiding underneath this tool, which is typically on the top. This is the eraser tool. I'm not going to talk about the eraser right now, but you need to find it to find the tool that I do want, the knife tool. I want you to be sure you're not using this tool down here, which looks like a knife, but it's called the slice tool. That's not the one we want. That's a web design tool, and it's not going to help us out. So I'm looking for.
I don't have that tool.
You don't have the knife tool?
No.
Yeah, I can't find it either.
All right, let's check something out. I want to go to the window menu for a minute, and I'm going to the window menu to workspace. I'd like you to join me. Go to window menu, workspace. The workspace I'm in is called Essentials Classic. Can you switch to Essentials Classic? Now, once you're there, that's window menu, workspace. Each of these arrangements are for different kinds of use in Illustrator. I'm currently in Essentials Classic. You should see the same tools as me.
I see it.
You see it now?
Thank
So
you.
typically it would look like this at first. You know, the eraser's on top. So I want to show you a couple things about this tool. In fact, even if you guys have the head, I'd like you to make a fast rectangle if you would. I want to compare a couple things. So if you would, just drag yourself a fast rectangle. And then I'd like you to switch to the tool of choice. This is the knife tool. So the way the knife tool works is like this. I'd like you to watch something. I've got this rectangle selected, and I'm currently running the knife right over the edge, and I'm going to let go. Now, in some versions of Illustrator, I'll get two shapes that are a group, and in other versions, I'll get two shapes, but they're not grouped. And I always have to check because I just recently updated this version. So I got the black arrow, I click off, I come back, I'm going to click it, and it turns out they're not grouped. So here's the deal. If you select a shape and you get the knife tool, you could cut that shape, get the black arrow. You probably will have to click off first, then come back and choose the shape that interests you. Now you could do that to change their color, or you could cut it up because you really wanted to delete some of it. So I'll get the black arrow, I'll deselect, I'll come back, get the part that I'm interested in, delete it, change its color, whatever you want to do. Now, I want to show you something that's kind of interesting about this tool, though. So, if you want to join me on this, I need a few rectangles. So I'm stacking 3. My computer has this weird blending mode problem. So let me fix it. This seems to be just me. So just give me a minute to fix that. All right, so I've got these 3 objects. If you've got 3 rectangles like mine, I'd like you to set it up now so that they each have a different color. Now, there's a reason I'm doing this. The knife tool has the ability to cut shapes. Now, if you select a shape, you're limited to that shape. If you don't select any shape, you cut any shape you even touch. So I've got 3 shapes here, and if you'd like to join me, please make sure they're not selected. In other words, click off of everything. Get your black arrow and just click off of everything. I'm switching to the knife tool. Now watch what happens if I cut right through all of them. Now I go back, I get the black arrow, I click off, and then I can come back and prove to you that it sliced through all of them. That can be very handy, but it could also really be a problem. So I want to show you in a couple of examples of what else I could have done. So just bear with me. I'm going to Command Z. I'm going back to when they were just like they were originally. And I'm going to choose just one. So if I select one and then cut, same kind of cut, only that one was cut. So I want to mention a few things about this. Here's the kind of things that I like to do with it. I'm going to just get rid of these guys. If I wanted to give the head hair, right, I'd probably select the head first to make sure I didn't cut anything in the background or anything nearby. I'd just select it. Now, I'm not saying this is the best way to create hair, but it could create a very graphic kind of hair. So this is an example. I've selected the head, I switched to the knife tool, and I'm cutting very carefully to make sure that I go all the way through his head. And then I'm going to come back and get the black arrow. If necessary, I'll click off. But my goal is to come here and set it up. Now, you know, it's a graphic look. Now the thing is, so there it is, I'm just proving that it's separate. But let's say his hair was lighter, and now I wanted to put a shadow behind the entire head. I'm going to get rid of this gradient so I can make a simple demonstration. Goofy looking guy. He's got blue hair and a yellow face. I just want to clean up this stroke that I had, a messy stroke. Now, if I wanted to create a shape that I could fill for the back of his head, I could select both the hair and the head, then get the knife tool and do something like this. Now, when I get the black arrow, look at the advantages I have. There's the head. I could give the hair, I could give it a darker fill. Here's the skin, and I could give that a darker fill. I don't want to make a big deal out of this tool. I just wanted you to know that it exists. It's a way that you could freehand cuts in objects for any number of purposes. Just keep in mind that you could select a shape to limit the cut, or you could select nothing to cut wherever you want. Does anyone have any questions about this particular tool, the knife tool?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm making the cuts, but it's not, it's like filling in everything on the page.
So the cuts themselves shouldn't fill anything. They just make cuts. So I want to make sure you're in the right tool. So here's my
I mean,
kidney
like
bean.
when I'm filling the cut, I mean, when I'm changing the color of the cut, it changes everything.
All right, let me take a look at that for a second. So here's this shape. I accidentally gave it a weird stroke before, so I'm just cleaning that up. So here's my shape. Here's my knife tool, and I'm cutting some kind of useful shape. I switch to the black arrow, and I click off first. Now that's important, because then when I come back and choose one, there's really no way that that could color anything else. You can only color an object that's selected. So now I have it, and I'm going to give it a different color. Now, if you'd like, I could take a look at yours and see what's going on. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
All right, let me turn off my screen sharing. All right.
Okay.
You just click the green share screen button. There we go. Great.
Let me try to make this a little larger. Okay, so I'm gonna. Sorry, is this the cut?
No, that's the problem. That's not
Oh.
the tool. That's for web designers. Neither one of those tools. That's the tool.
All right.
Now cut. Excellent. That's
So,
funny that it changed color, but that's all right. So
all right,
that's-
well, it seemed to work that time. Maybe that was the problem. I was on the wrong tool.
you're in the wrong tool.
Okay.
That's all right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. So if you turn off your screen sharing, I'll turn on mine. Does anybody else need a hand? So guys, listen, there's something important I want to switch to before everyone is just too exhausted to stand it, right? So I want to switch to something very, very professional. It's not about drawing. It's about preparing a document. So we've had a number of issues with file size. And last time I saw you, I'd asked if any of you felt like your computer acted slower after you did file menu place. And a couple people were like, nah, no one felt like it was an emergency. But since then, you might have brought in more photos and it might have gotten even slower. So I want to show you something about how to manage placed images, especially ones that might slow down your computer. Now, before we do it together, I want to point something out. There's two topics. You know, it all has to do with file menu place. That's true, right? But they're about whether you uncheck link, like I've been recommending, or whether you check link, which I'm about to show you the reason behind. So bear with me for a minute. You're bringing in your 4 photographs because you're drawing on top of them. And I said to uncheck link. And here's a
Professor?
better explanation of why.
Just so you know, we can't
Yes.
see your screen.
Oh, thank you. This is having a brain issue today. I could blame the computer, but it's not. It's definitely the brain. Okay, there we go. Thank you, though. All right, let's take a look at the handout. Are you guys seeing it now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, give me a minute. Okay. So I'm looking at number 9 on the handout. And the subject is file menu place, but it's all about file size and delivering the file. And these are the two that I'm comparing. When you do file menu place and you uncheck link, it's very convenient. You don't have to worry about those photos. They'll never disappear. And we call that embedding. So every time you place a photo and uncheck link, you've embedded the photo. It's a permanent part. The negative is it slows down the computer. It slows down the Illustrator file. And if you have a lot of them, it's going to slow it down unmanageably. Or if the photos themselves are just tremendous in size, this becomes inconvenient. So I want to compare it to checking link. Now, when you check link, the photos are not embedded. Now, when you're working on your own computer, that might not be a problem. The Illustrator file knows where the photos are. They are linked. So if link is checked, the photos are linked to the Illustrator file from wherever they live in their folder strewn around your computer, but they're linked to the Illustrator file. So the Illustrator file will behave the same, but it'll be faster because it's not carrying the weight, right? They're not embedded. They're linked instead. The problem only is how do you get it to somebody else? How do you deliver it to a client, to an art director, to a teacher? So to make this more realistic, I want you to join me, but you're going to need today's assets. So if you got today's assets earlier, you're good. If not, please get them now. So you can go to our homepage or you can get them right from here. Once you've got your assets, open them up. This is called Class 10 Assets. I'm in my downloads, but I don't want them there. I'm going to move mine to the desktop. I'm going to leave it up to you where you put it. You have to remember. So to join me on this very important exercise, you do need today's assets. I do want to remind you, however, you could have also gotten it from here. Class 10 Assets. All right. And get back to Illustrator. I'm going to ask you to open a new Illustrator document. So once you've got your assets, just get us a clean page in Illustrator. Letter size is fine. Now, while people are downloading the assets, I want to mention something. I moved that folder to the desktop. So give me a second to find it. And I want to show you something. Wrong assets. Hang on a second there. Wrong class. There we go. this is what I've got. I've got cow 1, even says cow 1 on it, cow 2, dog 1, and dog 2. Now these happen to be very small files. Cow 1 here is about 40 kilobytes. So this isn't going to slow anybody's computer no matter how you do it. But I want to show you how you'd manage this. All right, could everybody join me? In Illustrator, I'd like you to do File menu, Place. I'd like you to find the folder that today's assets. And what I'd like you to do is select all 4. Now don't click place, but I'd like you to select all 4. You did File menu, Place. You're finding your way to the folder. You could click the top of that stack of 4 photos, hold down Shift and click the bottom. But I want you to notice something before we go further. You already know how to do this. And in class, I've asked you to uncheck link. So let's do it again. Uncheck link. Now click place. Now this time it says 1/4. So I want you to click once, come nearby, click twice. Here's the 3rd click, and you've placed all 4. It might be a little helpful for me if we got them in some kind of order. So I'm going to get the black arrow and put the cows next to each other. Cow 1, cow 2, just so we could talk about this. Dog 1, dog 2. All right. Now, so far, there's really nothing new going on. Just give me a moment here. There we go. So far, there's nothing new. Plain old place, you uncheck link. But let's say you were working with this file for a while and your computer was getting really slow, right? You're like, I wish there was something I could do about it. Well, there's 2 things you'd need to do. One, we could tell these photos that we'd rather them be linked after all. You know, this way the weight of the Illustrator file's not carrying all 4 photos. It's going to link to them. You're not worried because you're using your own computer. It's a little harder if you're at school and you're using a different computer every day, right? But the problem is still going to go one step further. How do you give it to somebody else if the photos are not embedded? So I want to show you the whole process. You did what you know, you unchecked link, the computer got slow, that was the first problem. I'd like to introduce you to a new palette. Could everyone go to the window menu and open window menu, Lynx. Now, this is a pretty interesting palette, and you're only going to use it if you bring photos in, or if you bring scans of your own sketches, which you might do on the next project, right? And here you could click one if you like. On the bottom, you'll notice that there's a couple of buttons. One of them even says go to link, and it shows you which photo it is. Here's cow 2. There's these 3 buttons, go to link, and it's showing me that one. All right, that's interesting, but not that interesting. What I'd like you to notice is all the photos are listed with these odd icons on the right. Now remember, we unchecked link before. These icons mean that these are embedded images. So I can give anyone the Illustrator file if I'm not worried about file size. But in this scenario, we are worried about file size. So you want to link them instead. All right, could you go to cow 1 on the list? And I'd like you to notice this little menu on the right. Here it says unembed. Unembed. That's the same as link. Here it says relink. Let's use this. I think this makes more sense. You go into cow 1, you're coming over here, and I want you to choose relink. Now what it's going to do is ask you to go find the original photo. You're saying cow 1 shouldn't be embedded. It's slowing me down. So you're going to relink it or link it. So if you find your way to your folder, choose Cal 1, check link, and click place. The icon goes away. I want you to go to Cal 2, do the same thing. Cal 2, go to the menu, choose relink. And I know that's a little misleading because it's never been linked, but that's okay. Relink, find Cal 2, make sure link is checked. Remember, or the first time you unchecked it, now we're checking it. The icon goes away. I want you to go through the whole list, click it, relink. This is dog 1. Link is checked. So I'm changing my mind. Now, if your computer's been slow on this project, this is something you could try, right? You'd open the Lynx palette. It'll list all your embedded artwork. And here we're going to do relink. Say, don't embed it. Please just link it. Here's dog 2. All right. Now, is there anything more? There is. Instantly, your file will probably be faster. And if you save the Illustrator file, the Illustrator file size is going to go down, and that's why it's going to be faster. But if you delete the photos from anywhere on your computer, right, the Illustrator file won't have access to them because it's linked to those photos in the folder. You follow me? So it's faster, but it is a little crazier. Suddenly I got 5 things I got to keep an eye on, and I don't really like that. So luckily, illustrators created a way where you could deliver this to somebody else, and they will also have linked images, a fast file, and no worries about you actually losing the photos. This feature is called package. And it's on my mind because I feel like some of your other teachers are likely to ask you to package something. Oh, I need an Illustrator homework from you, a big project, lots of photos, right? I want them all to be linked, but you have to send me a package. Now, the cool thing about sending a package is it will also package your fonts. That's cool. That means use some crazy font you got online or a font you spent $100 on. Well, when you package it, it's going to send all your photos, all your fonts, and the Illustrator file ready to go. Let's make a package together. All right. I'd like you to save this file first. So you're in Illustrator, File menu, Save. I'm going to save mine to the desktop, and I'm simply going to call it Animals. This options window opens. I just click OK. That's the file I'm going to use when I continue my project tomorrow, the next day, on and on, right? It's mine. I'm going to make a package just to deliver it. So let's package it. File menu, package. Got to tell you, my generation got very excited about this because we had to make our own packages in the past, and it was a real nuisance. File menu, package. Now, if you look at this, it's got a few interesting things. Let's start at the top. It asks you where you want to put it. If you don't like that location, click this little folder. And you could choose any other place you'd like to put it. Click choose, and it shows you the path to that location. Beneath that, it says folder name, and you can call it anything you want. The original was called Animals. I'm going to call this one Animals folder, Animals package. That's clear to people in the field. Now, if you notice what's checked, this is the interesting part. Copy links. Those are the photos. So that Illustrator file will be fast, but it's also going to make sure that the photos are there. Collect them into a separate folder. It's going to make a little neat folder inside the package. Perfect. Relink them all so the Illustrator file will know about them. Thumbs up across the board. For extra measure, copy the fonts. This last one, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Create report. It's going to be a little report, what kind of colors you used and what kind of photos you used. If you're interested to see the report, leave it on. Now simply click package. It's warning you about the fonts. It doesn't want you to steal people's fonts. Okay. I'm going to just click OK. It's asking you if you want to see the package, but what I'd rather you do is OK it and go find the package yourself. So I'm just going to click OK. And I'm going to go and find it. I left mine on the desktop. So I have my own way of getting to the desktop. It's called Animals Package. It added a 0 to it. I don't know why it did that, or I didn't notice it. But I'm going to open up the package to show you what's in there. There's the Illustrator file your client would open, your teacher would open. Inside is a folder called Lynx with the photos. And this file knows where they are. I don't have to touch it. It'll just work. If there were fonts, there'd be a folder called Fonts, and the whole thing would be linked. You deliver this folder. The person on the other end has everything they need. I don't know about you, but that strikes me as incredibly nerdy. And most of you are a much better student than I was. So I know myself when I was in college, my brain would have turned off completely in the middle of that. You guys are much wiser. But if you look at the clock, you tell all of this happened in the last hour of class. So if you ever really wanted to look this stuff up, this is the last fifth. This started about 5:15, you know, and so you go about 2 hours, 15 minutes into the video if you want to watch this part again. Does anybody want me to go over that quickly, just to do a shorter version of it? I'm going to do it one more time. Say that, Juliana?
Yes, please.
Yes. All right, I'm going to do it one more time. So this time I'm going to run through it myself. Anyone, it's a good time to take notes. All right. So I'm opening up a new document. And I'm doing File, Menu, Place. I had the photos prepared. And now I have to make a choice, right? I could link them from the start, right? And then package it later. Or I could uncheck link right now. But in this particular scenario, I unchecked link like we've been doing this semester because it was convenient. I thought it was convenient, right? That means they're embedded. I wish this said link or embed, and you choose one or the other, but they don't write it that way, right? Link means it's not embedded. You're going to have to package. So let's say I did it the way I told you. I kept saying uncheck link. I'm going to do it. Place. I place the photos. I look here, right? Here are these little icons. All these little icons just mean that they are permanently embedded. I got a big Illustrator file, easy to manage. But after a while, I discover, oh, it's getting too slow. Yeah, I wish I had linked them. So I could change my mind on the Lynx palette. Remember, that's from the window menu. This is pretty advanced stuff. So I go to one. I'm going to choose relink. That was count one. I want to make sure I get the right photo. This time I check it, right? So this is going to be a proper link. It's not going to be embedded. And I know that because the icon goes away. I'm going to click it again. I'm choosing relink. I realize that's not the best choice of words that Adobe has used. Here's Cal 2. If link is on, faster file, and I have to package. That's what I want. I want the faster file. I don't mind packaging. What am I on? Dog 1. Link is on this time. This is different. Went away, and I'm doing the last one. Dog 2. Link is on. I click place. And I got to tell you again, if I'm going to make a JPEG because I'm doing illustration for the web, I got life very easy. My computer would have been fine either way. The choice is yours. I'm going to make a JPEG and send that to the client. You know, if it's a teacher and they want the whole file, you're going to have to package. All right. So at this stage, I'd save my original. That's the one I would continue to work on in the future. Then I prepare the package to send to the printer, to the newspaper that I work for, the magazine, that kind of situation. People who need all the parts. File menu, package. Here you simply choose where you want to put your package so you can find it later. I'm putting it on the desktop. You can give it a name, Animals 2 folder. I'm going to stick with that. And I leave everything checked. Package. I could look at it right now, or I could go find it, which I find reassuring. You know, I want to know where it is. So I'm going to just click OK. All right. Let me just clean up a little bit for a minute here. Eek. That's not cleaning up. That's a big mess and it's embarrassing. Give me a second there. Oh, teacher needs a break. I'm going to do it a different way. I got to get to the desktop one way or the other because that's where I saved it. Here's Animals 2 folder. I'm going to open it. My client or my teacher or my art director or the print house is going to open this. And their photos will look great. If there were fonts, the fonts would be here. They would also automatically work. It's beautiful. This is what you would send. Let me just get back to the handout for a minute. I want to say a couple things about that. Some that are about your future, and some are about this particular project. In the future, if you're a heavy Illustrator user, you're very likely to need this. You know, if I'm doing a brochure, a fancy, or let's say I'm doing a fancy poster, this is something I've had to do, so I know a lot about it. And I'm going to give it to a print output center. You know, they got all the good equipment. They need the original photos. They need the fonts. If I don't send them a package, right, or an embedded file, it will print, but all the photos will look bad. Because what happens, Illustrator will generate low resolution copies just so the file can be used. But the high resolution, beautiful scan and wonderful photos, they just won't be there. So the printer won't print very well. So the moral of the story is you could still uncheck link and not worry about it if your computer can handle it. Or there's only 4 small photos of animals. But if there's 20, I'm going to be in trouble if I uncheck link. Or if they're really big, high resolution photos, all that stuff, I probably should have linked. So we introduced the link palette today so you could change your mind. There's more to that palette. You can go back and forth, but I wanted to introduce for this particular project. I want to say something about this project though. Do you really have to do that? So guys, if I lost your attention now, I can't blame you. I really can't. I mean it sincerely, but come back. Because next week, this thing's just due, right? The finished project. How are you going to deliver it? There's a bunch of choices, but I want to mention something that hasn't come up. When you're done, I can't see the photos anymore, right? Because you drew everything. So I can't even see the photos. They're underneath your drawing. So what you could conceivably do is keep a copy for yourself the way that it is, then delete the photos and make a new copy for me. Just give it to me without photos at all. I don't really need them. You know, now that I've taught this subject a bunch of times at this school, I can tell you honestly, I've never needed those photos except for during drafts. You know, I could peek at what someone's thinking and answer questions about a problem. But when the project's done, I don't need them. So I'm going to give you a choice. If you're feeling overwhelmed, but you did well on the project, you know, you like the drawings, just delete the photos. That's acceptable. If you'd like to keep it all together, make a package and give me the package. Not all you teachers are going to like that because that means I have to open each package and open the Illustrator file. It's going to be a little slower. but I want to give you the chance to make some decisions of your own. The last decision is, if the file's been behaving all along, you know, and you unchecked link, your computer didn't slow down. I have not complained. The thing's just opening. Leave it the way that it is. See, the only time you really have to deal with linking is because there's too many photos or they're just too big. I want to show you guys something. If I went to Google Drive now, here's your guys' work, right? On top, I've got Micah's here. And if I double click it, his is saying it was too big to preview. I got to download it, right? So maybe Micah wants to throw out the photos, give me that kind of copy, or he wants to package it. Either way, I'll have to download it. But I want to say something about it. If it tells me that they need links and you don't give me the photos, I'll accept it, but a print house wouldn't. Print house either needs link unchecked because the real data is embedded. They don't have to worry. They'll get the full quality image, or they need a package. So anyway, this is what I'm thinking. Here's my number one choice. Finish it and delete the photos. That's my sincere advice. Keep a copy for yourself. What if I ask for revisions, right? You're going to want those photos. So make a duplicate, delete the photos, and give me that next week. I think that's for the best decision. Does anybody, need a hand, want a question about your specific file in terms of photo management?
I have a question.
Yes, Ivy.
So I try to test the package, but when I go to the file menu, I see the name package, but it's like I cannot select it. Do you know the reason why?
Well, where did you put the package? Is it on your desktop?
No. I can't like select the package.
You won't be able to open it from the file menu. I mean, you could open the Illustrator file. Look, like, watch this for a moment. Let's say if I'm in Illustrator and I do file menu open, I could find one of the packages, but I'll only be able to open the Illustrator file because it's Illustrator. You know, it'll open it. But if you want to see the package yourself, you have to get to wherever you put the package. If it's on the desktop, you have to get there. In other words, put stuff away. You know, and now I'm going to look at my messy desktop.
He means like he's not available to select it. Like it's grayed out for him.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to turn off my screen share. Do you want to screen share with me for a minute?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, your turn.
So I just like do same with you, and I try to go here. I can see, but it's
see
like
that.
gray,
Gotcha.
and I cannot
So
choose it.
I'm wondering if it's because your images are still embedded. Do you see your Lynx palette? It's down toward the bottom there. Yeah. Can you click Cal 1? And you see that little menu that I was talking about earlier? The one well, you could use that. Yeah, you could use that also. Yeah, it's the same. All right, try that. Let's give it a minute.
And choose.
Cal 1. Now check link though. All right, you skipped the step. True it one more time.
Oh.
One more time. All right, click Cal 1, but
Oh,
check
and I
link.
need to.
Exactly.
Oh, that's why maybe.
That's why. Right. So when all
Oh.
4 of them are properly linked, you can make a package.
Okay. Yeah.
So that ought to do it.
You're right.
Excellent. Let's see. I want to see also, is it working now? No. Huh. All right. I got to think it through. I thought for sure that that's what it was. Is the file saved? No, the file's not saved. Let's try that. This file's never been saved. Do a regular save. File menu save. All right, let's try it now. File menu package. All right, you want to get back to that file though. You're in a different image, it looks like.
Yeah.
Did you close it?
I need to get back.
I'm not sure what just happened. It looks like you accidentally closed that file. I feel pretty sure that that's the problem. Can you guys hear me?
No.
Hibby, when you
Yes.
open that one again, I think you just closed it by accident. All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's try it now. File menu package.
Oh yeah.
There you go. All right. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, the first issue was they were never linked, so there would have been no purpose in making the package, right? You know, linking means
Yeah.
linking out to separate images, and then they have to be collected to get to others. For example, if you're working on a team and he was done, and I'm supposed to finish it, he'd have to send me the whole package.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, I want to just take a quick look here. I'm going to wrap up class a little early, but I want to go over some stuff before we leave. Okay. I want to go over some of the details. As I said, this is probably the most challenging project to my mind of the semester. The next project's going to challenge your imagination, and it will also challenge your skill, but there's really nothing like photorealism to knock us out. So let's do this one as well as we can. All right. I want to make sure that everyone has the views I asked for, right? A front view, a top view, and a side view. Somebody did a hat, and that's kind of vague. You know, I mean, it's a round object, and the views are not that distinctive. So I'm a little concerned. Front view, top view, and a side view. You get one angled view, right? You know, one angle on the object. Other than that, it's very frontal, or you're right on top, or you're right on the side. I want to mention some things though. Since it was early and everybody was focusing on drawing and texture and all those kinds of elements, a lot of you didn't think about the background yet. And that's fine, because a simple background is fine, but you want to find that color or that blend that is perfect for you, right? You really do. I want to remind you of something quickly. You know, this one here, the red works so well because it's working with the fire of the toy dragon. This one here, it's interesting to me that this gray works well. And I'm not sure why. Could be the black stripes or the grayish elements or just the way we see streets. This is a distinctive brown. It's leather brown, and it's working because it's a leather shoes. This person chose to use a gradient, and it really needed it. The object itself relied heavily on gradients, and it created a kind of light and atmosphere. Gradient's a good idea. But no matter, this person added an element, and you're welcome to do that. It was clever, and it brought up an otherwise slightly boring one and brought it up to a kind of exciting level. I really respected that. Here's flat out black. The artist had some very severe, nearly black shadows, and it helps those objects merge into the space. Yeah, can white work? Sure did for this artist. I think it's because it's this light kitchenware with a lot of transparency. So what I'm trying to say to you is don't knock yourself out, but I would like you to be sure that the background you chose, as simple as it is, really does work for you. All right. Please don't improvise on the size. This is the only size I'm going to accept. I will let you switch those numbers. I know one person used them vertically. I'll accept it. but I won't accept any size other than this, and I won't accept anything with stuff going over the margin. So you do want a 1/2 inch margin this time. I want you to be brutal about it. Things stay in the margin, like my handout stays in the margin. All right. About the photos and whether they're placed, right? What the conversation we just had was more thorough. I really believe that if you think your work is finished enough that you can make a copy for me and delete the photos, then that'll probably solve the problem. I'm worried about you deleting photos from your copy, because what if I ask for a revision? So if you're going to just delete the photos, please be sure that you made a copy for me. Otherwise, either of these, we were unchecking link, and that might work if your photos were light. If the photos are heavy and it's been a problem, then you're going to have to follow the steps that we just went through and Hibby and I just repeated.
Quick question.
Yes.
So for the pictures, do you want them like next to the illustrations?
No. I want them like the examples I just showed you.
Oh, okay.
That was all student work. You know, that honestly, that's what I'm driving at, work to equal those. And to be honest, I showed you a span. The Monopoly one, the only thing cool about it was the way he laid it out, which brings me to the next subject. The blender at the end was just gorgeous because the rendering was gorgeous. So Sean, what I'd really like is to you be happy enough that you don't even care about the photos anymore. You know?
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So the one thing I would say, and I started the class mentioning this, when the drawings are done, consider whether they look good where they are and at the size that they are. The ones that I was just showing you all made sense. And what do I mean by that? A second here. Let me choose a better example. These three are the same size. This one's bigger, but I can obviously see why. The artist did that for design's sake. If this one was a little short, it would feel wrong. Clearly set it up that they should be consistent. The only one that's different is the top view because it was so different than the other three anyway. Here, they're all the same size. That just makes sense. And it actually makes a nice layout. On some of the ones that I saw, there were random changes in size that just did not help. If you notice, most of these stay with one size. The object feels believable on every angle. But if you have a layout reason, you just don't like the layout, make sure your layout makes sense somehow. You know, we're artists and everything you display has to follow that one rule. I've said that on every project. The layout in the end's got to sing. You know, it's got to just feel right. All right. So we are looking for detail for those, you know, the 1 or 2 people who just plopped in flat colors. I don't think that's enough. You know, you want to do your best to describe texture and sheen and any surface quality. So look, if you couldn't get it every surface, but the object has impact, you'll get an A. I'm not saying that the satin must be as good as the fur. It'd be great if it was. But if it's not, and somehow the rest of it sings, you'll do fine. All right, here's the last part. Just a reminder, if you're giving me just the Illustrator file, this is the name. If you're giving me a whole package, this is the name of the folder. But you could always rename it after you're done, if that's convenient. I'm looking forward to the next project. You know, this one's great learning. It really is. There was so much good stuff already in the Google Drive, but it is tiring. It really, really is tiring. We only have 5 classes left. Anybody have any questions for me? I have 1 brain cell left. I'll use it on your question. Okay, guys, listen, I want to just say a little something before you go. I am very much on everybody's side here. There are 1 or 2 people that are a little behind the curve, right? And I want to help push you forward if it's at all possible. I have somebody in one of my sections, I don't remember who it is, so I'm not going to point you out if you're in this section, who did no homework. You know, and it explained to me why, at good reasons, it was about work, you know, paying bills and all that, but it's FIT. frankly, I wouldn't allow that at any college in the city to tell me that by the time we're, finishing the third project, even with a good reason. So I want to say, those of you who work really hard, I know you're tired. I know this is stressful. I hope you could tell how much better you're getting. You sure will in 6 months when you look back and you see what the payoff was. But anyway, I'm on your side, folks. I'll see you all next week. I'm looking forward to seeing this last project and also to introduce the final project, the Reimagined Cities. It's the most fun project. Really, I love it. No last question? Really? So listen, I have a meeting set up with one of you, so I'm not going to stick around for the group afterwards. I'm just going to say goodbye then. And again, if you need me for anything, please send me the most detailed email you can so I can answer you properly. Tomorrow and Wednesday are my big email days. So I'm going to get back to everybody. Other than that, I'll see you all next Monday. See you next Monday, guys.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
The person I had a meeting with just left.
Bye.
Oh, well, guess I am.
And the other person?
Do you guys have questions since you're by yourselves?
I
How you
have
doing?
a question about what happened to my project. You saw my email that it got deleted.
Yeah, that's terrible. Hadassah, how did you do with the first two projects?
My first two, the first one I got 100. The second one I got an 80, but I don't know if that was my revision or not. I revised it for you. I don't know if that was my finished. I don't know if that was the revised one in the
I could take a
original.
you want me to take a quick look into that first? So you
If you would like to, I just want to know if it's gonna count against my grade, the fact that I didn't get to hand in my progress today because it was deleted, but I will definitely have it in by next week, the final draft. I'm just gonna have to start from the beginning. I have no idea how it happened. I think my computer just glitched. I sent you a picture of my progress to show you that
saw
like,
that.
I actually
That
do
was
it.
clever. That was very smart.
By the way, I got lucky that I had sent it to a friend. So I was like, oh my goodness, I have to send this to my professor. So he sees like, because anyone could really just email you that.
That's true. So, if you look like a devious person, that would have saved you. But, but I have to say, I'm pleased you sent it to a friend. That, shows a level of engagement. But listen, simply enough, no, I'm not going to take any points off because you missed getting it in the draft in today. So that you don't have to worry about. That won't affect your grade at all.
Okay.
Right? So that's the good part. The bad part is, oh my God, you have to redo all that work in 1 week.
Yeah, that's just life for you,
So even if you search your computer, was it already named like on my handout?
Yeah, I was working off from the draft from the previous week, but I looked there and it's gone. Like it's
So
not.
I'll tell you one thing. Are you on a Mac?
Yeah.
So am I screen sharing? I am. I want to show you something, right? So I'm on my Mac right now, and if I go ahead and I open up any kind of folder, right? Any folder, right? I could do Command F, which is a fancy kind of search, right? Anything to do with my class probably starts with CD 124, right? So I'm just going to type in CD 124, right? And I could tell it to search this Mac. And anything that has that name in it. Or I could actually then click this little plus sign here if I wanted and actually give it details like, I don't think I would do that. I think I'd just search CD 120. Actually, this is what I would do. I got a
I'm
better
doing
way.
that now, and it only shows my first two projects, like the step-by-step one that we did, and the original one with the letters and the words with the letters and the objects.
Okay, that just means your teacher's being stubborn because I just don't want to believe that happened to you.
I know, it's okay.
If you just searched it now and you literally cannot find it, then it's gone.
Yeah.
Unless is it a chance you saved it to a drive, like a USB drive, or?
I wish I did that, but I did not.
All right. So listen, I'm glad you're treating it with a sense of humor. That's what I really have to say. Hadassah, I would like to check on that other one for you.
Okay.
So just give me a minute. I want to see something about it because I have a system that makes answering stuff like that a little bit easier. So project 2 finals. No, it would be in revisions, you said, right?
Yeah, I put it in revisions. It's the last one, I think all the way at the bottom. I see it there.
Adasa. So that star next to it means that I already graded it.
Okay, fine. So it's already done.
So if you take a look at Blackboard, there should be a, you know, if it deserved a bigger grade, then I changed it.
Okay, fine. Perfect.
Right. And if there's any doubts about it after you look at Blackboard, send me another email.
Okay, thank you so much. I
So
really
you're welcome.
appreciate it and you
You're
being so
welcome.
understanding.
How about you, Christina? Can I do anything for you? Bye-bye, Adasa.
Oh gosh, I'm one of those people that had a very, very, very rough outline for my second draft. So I knew immediately that I should talk to you.
Do you want me to take a look at it right now?
I've been working on it a lot, so I could share my
Oh,
screen.
okay.
with
All right,
you.
let me stop my sharing. All right.
Okay. Second. Share. Illustrator. Okay. I erased everything that I had, and like some of the lines, a lot of the lines that I did, you can't really see because I did them in their proper colors now, like the silver and the.
You want to just hide the photos for me?
I'm
Like
not
the
sure
one
how to
left?
do that.
So open up your layers.
Okay. Window. Layers.
All right. And I'd like you to fold up that top layer. You know, on the left, it's got a little carrot that's pointing down. Nope.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. All right. So you never made a layer for the photos, and that's why it's going to be harder to work with. So can you scroll down through, open that up again? Since it doesn't have its own layer, it's just a little harder. Scroll to the bottom.
See, I thought I did.
But you didn't. I mean, if you want, we could fix that now. I can show you how to fix it. All right, so go back up. Close it. Close the layer. You know, click that little thing. Make a new layer. Nope.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Command Z, please. Don't just click again, Christine.
I'm sorry. I'm just so green at all this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Click that one. All right. Now, I want you to get the black arrow.
Black arrow.
Right. The selection tool. Click on one of the photos.
Like.
Well, I think you locked the photos. That made sense, but we're gonna have to go another step then. Can you open layer one up again?
Okay. So hold on. I just deselect. Go to layer one.
Well, you know what? I got a better way. Never mind. Close that out. Sorry. I just realized I got a better way for you. Can you go to the object menu?
Yes. Should I select the whole?
No, don't bother. Just go to the object menu. And there should be something there that says unlock all.
Unlock all. Okay.
All right. Okay, so now click that photo. Now on the layer palette, on layer one, there's a tiny blue box. Look to the right.
Yes.
I call it the elevator. Take the elevator up to layer 3. Pull that up. Just drag that up.
Okay.
Okay. Now it looks like other photos came with it. So they might have been grouped. Can I see can I see your whole page? Like maybe do Command 0 for me. So it looks like they were all grouped. So this is a little easier than I thought. I want you to now do a couple things with me. I want you to take layer 3, the whole layer, not the elevator, the whole layer, and drag it underneath layer 1. Okay. Now poke it in the eye. Okay, so your drawings were also inside with those photos. We tried to just move the photos, but it moved all your drawing also. So we're gonna have to try this again. Could you open layer 1? In other words, click that little thing.
The carrot?
Sorry, the lower layer I meant, not that one.
The 3?
That one, exactly right. Now I want you to scroll to the bottom of that layer. Keep going.
All the way to the bottom.
Are you on the bottom now?
Yep.
Could you poke that bottom one in the eye? See, I want to see if the photo disappears.
Well, the bottom ones are the margins.
Oh.
And then I have the photos labeled, and I believe this is the start of the.
All right. Can you poke one of the photos in the eye?
Sure.
All right. Poke the other 3. I just want to be sure of them.
Oh, okay.
So you got some drawings still there, right? So put the eyes back. All right, now we need to make your layers palette much taller. Do you know how to do that?
No.
So if you go to the bottom of your layers palette,
Okay.
see that double cursor? Press and drag down. Keep going. There you go. Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Select one of your photos.
Okay.
Now, to select it easily, there's a circle on the right. Click that. That's the same as clicking it with the black arrow. Take that elevator, drag it all the way up to layer 1 now.
Okay.
Exactly. Pull it. Drag. There you go. All right. Now go to the next photo. We're going to use the selection circles, you and I. All right. Take the elevator. Exactly. Do the others. I love this about Illustrator. You can do this. So you've just reorganized your layers. Could you close this layer up?
And close that.
No, no, no. Don't poke it in the eye. Close the lower layer with the little bracket. There you go. I want you to rename that top one, layer 1. Just double click it. Call it photos.
Yeah.
Rename the other one. Call it drawing. Right now, I'd like you to drag the photos layer underneath the drawing layer. Make sure not to drop it on it. No, no, the whole layer. Just yeah, the whole layer. All right. Now, poke that layer in the eye.
The photos.
Right. So, is that the only drawing you have? Is that little bit of drawing?
What I had sent in. Sorry. I had drawn more and I had sent it in, but it was not connected. Sorry. Trying to find my. I didn't connect any of the shapes. Like I was
lines. You mean
trying
there
to.
were no closed shapes? It was just lines.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out because like I was speaking to Rachel and Juliana about this because luckily they were in my group and they were dealing with some very complex objects, and I feel like I'm dealing with like very tiny shapes and lots of mirroring, and it's like very difficult to see
Well,
and
the first thing is
differentiate.
like I want to show you something. Can you stop screen sharing for a minute?
Yes. Stop.
This is all recording. Hey, YouTube. I'm going to stop it. All right, wait a second.